Hello, hello. I made it. Sorry I was running a bit late today. And I also... Hi, Blue. You're here right away. I totally forgot to schedule the stream. So, some people were worried, like, about where I was. But yeah, it just slipped my mind to schedule the stream. So I'm gonna wait for people to find the link. Hi, Cookie. Yeah, how was everybody's weekend? Hi, animal lover. I shortened people's names. I was almost just gonna call you Animal, but that just sounds funny. Unless you want to go by that. Hi, Nina. Good to see y'all. Henry, you made it too. Okay, cool. I think, yeah, everybody who is asking about the stream, you're all here now. Awesome. Oh, Blue, that's cool. What manhwas were you rereading? Oh, Cookie, I need to catch up on Kill to Love. I saw, like, the first two, and I didn't like all the choices they made, but I like the actors, and the story seems interesting, so I'm definitely going to continue at some point. I am so sorry. That sounds like it was a doozy of an episode. Animal lover. Okay, that's fair. I'll just call you by almost the whole thing. They have, yes, Cookie, they have zero budget, and I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Blue, I would ask you what Love Tractor is, but I think I saw you or someone posting about it on Discord, so I actually know what you're talking about. It's just, somehow, it's just a very funny sounding name to me. So over the weekend, I tried to reread, or at least skim through, like, everything that we've already read in the stream so far, and I got about halfway through. But that was just for me to, like, take a couple notes and try to, like, get all these different characters straight in my head as far as, like, who seems to be allied with who and the basic political situation that was going on, because as I read it for the first time, it's a little confusing, but going back already helped so much, because I feel like I have a way better idea of, like, the basics of what's going on. I've also heard of Sign, I think. I think I wanted to read that at some point. Oh yeah, Henry, I saw when Blue was recommending it to you. That was it. It does look really cute. So, yeah, now that I sort of have an idea of what's happening, in QJJ, I'm gonna pick up and keep reading. So, we are on page 111 for chapter 11. I love when the numbers work out like that. And chapter 11 is called New Year. Once inside the temple, Shen Zichuan's shackles were removed. He stretched his wrists as he listened patiently to the squad leader's grumbling. Jigong entered a short time later, pushing a wheelbarrow. He nimbly unloaded several jugs of wine for the Imperial Army before sidling up to Shen Zichuan, his linen wrap concealing his face. After ordering Jigong to finish tidying the courtyard before New Year's Day, the squad leader headed outside to warn the guards on duty to keep silent about the night's events. Only then did Jigong take Shen Zichuan's arm. "Are you injured?" "No." Shen Zichuan rubbed the nape of his neck, where Xiao Qi's fingers had left livid red marks. "Shifu," he began. Where does it hurt? Shen Zichuan shook his head. He thought things over a moment, then said, "He's strong and fierce, and his punches and kicks are powerful." The style felt familiar. Oh, and we know Qigong teaches, like, the G-style martial arts. So that's interesting. Astonishment spread over Qigong's burned face. Our G-style boxing has never been shared with outsiders. After he struck, I didn't dare counter his moves with my own. The taste of blood seemed to linger in Shen Zichuan's mouth. He ran his tongue over the edges of his teeth and considered. I was afraid he might notice something, so I didn't fight seriously. But just cowering and playing dumb didn't deceive him either. Shifu, why does he hate me so much? Xiansheng mentioned the current political situation. But should the Hua clan and the Empress Dowager not be the ones he hates most? That bastard was drunk. Qigong spat with loathing. Bullies always pick on the weak, so he turned his hate on you. Shen Zichuan extended his left hand. He was looking for this. Shifu, do you recognize it? Oh, he has it. Lying in his palm was a well-worn thumb ring made of bone. Hi, Wolf. Soldiers with exceptional upper body strength often wield great bows. They wear thumb rings like this when they draw. Qigong studied it. This kind of wear and tear almost certainly comes of drawing the mighty bows of the Li Bei armored cavalry. But second young Master Xiao isn't in the army and doesn't ride into battle. What's he wearing this for? Someone gave it to him who was riding in the cavalry, is what I'm guessing. Or he has a secret alter identity or something. But probably the former. Xiao Qi went home and lost himself in sleep. Lu Guangbai woke him late in the morning. You were really something last night. Lu Guangbai made himself at home in a chair. You've barely landed an official position, and you're already out there harassing people. I saw Jiming leave the manor earlier, heading for the palace. There was a lump in Xiao Qi's throat. He burrowed beneath the quilt. I had too much to drink. We'll be leaving the capital in a few days, Lu Guangbai said, earnest. You know you can't go on like this. What are you going to do if all this drinking ruins your martial arts and you waste away? Xiao Qi was silent. Put yourself in your brother's shoes. They wounded his heart at the banquet last night. He's running himself ragged, seeing to Li Bei's military affairs, all while worrying about your sister-in-law and the baby. And now he has to leave you behind. He feels terrible. Everyone sings his praises in public, but each time he sets out for battle, they secretly hope he never returns. Year after year, he leads troops into the field for these people. He doesn't say anything, but he's flesh and blood like anyone else. How could it not hurt? Flinging off the covers, Xiao Qi heaved a sigh. You think I don't know all that? What do you know? Lu Guangbai threw a tangerine at Xiao Qi. If you know, get up and apologize to your brother. Xiao Qi caught the tangerine and sat up. When Lu Guangbai saw the bandage on his hand, he couldn't help but laugh. Peeling his own tangerine, he said, What did you go and provoke him for? Are you satiated now you've been bitten? I told him to sing me a song, Xiao Qi said, but he claimed I wanted his life. This guy's a piece of work. You're a piece of work yourself, starting a fight with a prisoner in the middle of the street. You're lucky Jiming got there in time, or there would be uproar in the city today. Are you badly hurt? That guy must have been born in the year of the dog. Xiao Qiye grumbled, staring at the teeth marks on his hand. We do have tangerines again. Yep, that we do. Just, we just, I can't even. I was, like, gonna say something when it came up, and I was like, it's literally just a fruit. It's literally just a tangerine. It doesn't, they don't have that significance in this story. Now, if they end up having significance here, I will be thrown for a loop. Xiao Jiming didn't return until afternoon, with Zhao Hui in tow. As they approached, they saw Xiao Qiye waiting under the eaves. Da Ge, Xiao Qiye called out. Xiao Jiming handed his cloak to Zhao Hui. The maidservant brought out a copper water basin, and Xiao Jiming washed his hands, paying no mind to his little brother. Zhao Hui peered at Xiao Qiye. Gongzi, aren't you going to inspect the Imperial Army today? Go get your Supreme Commander token, then come back for dinner. I'll go if Da Ge tells me to, Xiao Qiye said. Xiao Jiming dried his hands and finally looked at him. I didn't tell you to go last night, but didn't you go anyway? I ran in the wrong direction, Xiao Qiye said. I meant to come home. Xiao Jiming threw the handkerchief back onto the tray. Very well. Go get your token, then come back for dinner. Only then did Xiao Qiye leave. Oh, animal lover. We're in Arha with Brittany's channel. We're at the point where tangerines were coming up a lot, and so we all just hate tangerines now. Yeah, Wolf, he is just a kid, basically. Ever since the Imperial Army had been relieved from its duty of guarding the capital, the former operations office had fallen into terrible disrepair. When Xiao Qiye arrived on horseback, he caught sight of several men in short pants and waist sashes, chatting as they basked in the sun. Their idleness bespoke none of the valor of an army. Xiao Qiye dismounted and strode into the courtyard, riding crop in hand. In the center of the courtyard was a balding pine tree ringed by mounds of snow that had been carelessly shoved aside. Icicles no one had knocked down dangled from the walkway eaves, and the rooftop tiles were long overdue for repair. This army was, in a word, broke. Xiao Qiye continued inside. The wooden plaque hanging over the entryway had peeling paint. He went down several steps and reached the main hall. Lifting the curtain with his riding crop, he bent to enter. The men sitting around the stove cracking peanuts whipped around to look at him. Xiao Qiye set his riding crop on the table, pulled up a chair, and sat. So, everyone's here, he said. As one, the men stood with a clatter, noisily trampling the shells on the ground. Most were over 40, hailing from old military households. Even after years in the Imperial Army, they still had no greater talents than shamelessness and petty extortion. Now that Xiao Qiye had appeared, they sized him up and exchanged sly glances, each harboring motives of their own. Argongzi, a likely-looking fellow, wiped his hands on his robe and smiled. We've been waiting for you to come collect your token today. And here I am, Xiao Qiye said. Where's the token? The man chuckled. We waited for your excellency this morning, but you didn't come. The Ministry of Works was calling for laborers, so Assistant Commander Cao took the token to go deploy the men. Whenever he gets back, I'll send someone to deliver it to your excellency's manor. Xiao Qiye returned his smile. And you, good sir, are... Me? The man answered. Just call me Lao Chen. I used to be a company commander overseeing 100 men in Dicheng. Thanks to Lord Hua Shisan, who recommended me for promotion, I'm now the Registrar of the Imperial Army. How strange. One hand draped over the armrest, Xiao Qiye turned halfway to look at Lao Chen. One rank beneath the Supreme Commander of the Imperial Army should be the Vice Commander. How did the token end up in the hands of an Assistant Commander? Your Excellency may not be aware, but when Lao Chen saw the intensity of Xiao Qiye's regard, he straightened imprudently from his deferential bow. After Zhongbo's defeat last year, the transport of grain levies from Jincheng was blocked. That led to a food shortage in Chudu. The Ministry of Personnel didn't have enough to pay salaries to all the officials, so they cut the staff in the Imperial Army office by half. Presently, we don't have a vice commander, so next in rank is Assistant Commander Cao. There are only a few of us left here. So what you're saying is that anyone can get their hands on the Supreme Commander's token? Usually we just take the token and go. Tasks from the Ministry of Works can't wait. They need men to carry lumber into the palace. Our position is low, and our words carry little weight. We can't afford to offend anyone, so what choice do we have? Lao Chen started passing the buck. If this practice offends your Excellency, you do well to clear it up with the Ministry of Works. As the Supreme Commander, why must I explain myself to the Ministry of Works? Asked Xiao Qiye. The Imperial Army reports to the Emperor. The 6 ministries sought help, and we provided it. It was out of camaraderie that we never settled accounts all this time. But from now on, if anyone wants for manpower, they'll give a proper explanation of the task and a clear account of the schedule before any of my men are expected to lift a finger. That's all very well to say, Lao Chen and the others laughed, but we aren't in charge of patrols anymore. We're just errand runners and odd jobbers. If we lend a hand when the 6 ministries call for it, at least we're still useful. Besides, it's been like this for years, and His Majesty's never said a word against it. Friends in court are better than money in your pocket, Argongse. You come from Li Bei, but the Imperial Army is nothing like your armored cavalry, or even like the 8 great battalions. Some things simply won't work here. Xiao Qiye stood. Who did you say recommended you to this post? Lao Chen glowed as he straightened proudly. He was only too happy to repeat it. Lord Hua Shisan. Your Excellency must know him. He's the Empress Dowager's grandson of common birth, and Third Lady Hua's. Xiao Qiye lifted his foot and kicked him square in the chest. 1 second, Lao Chen was puffing himself up. The next, he was toppling into the table and chairs. A teapot smashed against the ground, splashing tea across the floor and jolting Lao Chen back to his senses. Trembling, he knelt. A loafer raised by some Hua concubine, Xiao Qiye said, sweeping away peanut shells on the table. Someone fit only to carry my boots, and you think he's a powerful patron? He's small potatoes. I asked for the Supreme Commander's token. Instead, you lecture me on how things are done. Are you so blinded by your meager gains that you can't see who stands before you? Starting today, my word is law in the Imperial Army. Henry, he does have one move. He's just kicking people. He's got a good kick. Lao Chen kowtowed at once. It was a rude awakening. He hastily called out, Argongse, Argongse. Who the fuck is your Argongse? Xiao Qiye's eyes held a piercing chill. As Supreme Commander of the Imperial Army, I hold your life in my hands. You dare put on airs and act like some local thug? The Ministry of Works needs manpower for labor, but all the men come from the Imperial Army. If there were no money in it, would you find it worthwhile to throw yourselves at their feet? The men at the bottom are sent to work themselves to the bone, but you certainly kept yourself fat without lifting a finger. What? Hua Shisan is backing you, so you think you have a token of immunity? I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Lao Chen shuffled forward on his knees. My lord, this humble subordinate was just talking. Before half an incense stick burns, Xiao Chuye said, I need to see the token of command, a full staff register, and 20,000 men. If anything is missing, you gentlemen may bring me your heads in its place. Lao Chen leapt to his feet and bolted out the door. Oh, this is fun. Days later, the frontier generals departed the capital. The Xiande Emperor led a convoy of court officials to see Xiao Jiming off. He trod through the heavy snow, coughing intermittently, to take Xiao Jiming by the arm. The emperor was frightfully thin under his thick cloak. After you leave today, Jiming, we won't meet again until next year. The conflict on Libei's border continues, and though the Biansha horsemen have retreated after their defeat, they refuse to submit to our great Zhou. The desperate greed of the 12 tribes is clear for all to see. As our trusted official and a fearless general of the empire, we implore you to take care and remain vigilant. We were late to the rescue, yet your majesty still shows us such great favor. Both my father and this humble subject are struck by the honors your majesty has bestowed on us. From this day forward, Libei is at your majesty's beck and call, ready to risk life and limb at your word. Since your father fell ill, it's been many years since we've seen each other. The emperor slowly turned to take in the massive crowd gathered within the city gates, then raised his eyes to the magnificent palace that had towered over the capital for 100 years. As for the Shen clan remnant, we failed the loyal soldiers who gave their lives on the battlefield, he said softly. We have been confined to our sickbed too long. There are too many matters on which our hands are tied. Xiao Jiming followed his gaze. After a time, he said, A storm rages in Chudu. Please be mindful of your health, your majesty. The Xiande emperor slowly loosened his grip on Xiao Jiming. Good man. Go. Wolf, I feel like it could be a few chapters, or he could hold out for a surprisingly long time and then die at like a really dramatic moment to die, but I'm not sure what it's gonna be. Lu Guangbai rode out of the city. As expected, Xiao Chuye was waiting alone at the pavilion at the foot of the mountain. Sitting astride his horse, he whistled at Xiao Chuye from afar. Brat, your big brothers are leaving. Turbulence seethes below the surface. Only wary travelers stay afloat. There's a footnote. This is from the poem Dreaming of Li Bai 2 by Du Fu. Be careful out there. If you have something to say, spit it out. Why are you reciting poetry? Lu Guangbai laughed heartily. Be patient. You'll go home too one day. That's up to fate. Xiao Chuye smiled in return. The sound of hooves rang out behind them. Lu Guangbai looked back. As soon as he saw the rider kicking up snow, Lu Guangbai turned his horse and shouted, Grand Marshal, let's ride together. Qi Juyin slowed. Her black hair was pulled into a high ponytail, and she wore a sturdy coat over a worn outer lobe with the longsword strapped to her back. She traveled light. Going by appearances, she could have been an ordinary woman skilled in martial arts, traversing the world under her own power. Only after the flurries of snow settled could one see that she possessed an extraordinarily charming face. "That horse of yours is second-rate." She raised her eyebrows and grinned, her commanding air immediately evident. "Will it be able to keep up with mine?" Lu Guangbai was quite fond of his horse. "Perhaps he isn't as fierce as your steed, but he's a good lad who's seen his share of battle. Let's have a race, and we'll test his mettle. Now, that mount looks like a rare one." Qi Juyin lifted her chin in Xiao Chuye's direction. "Swap with me?" Xiao Chuye stroked his horse's mane. "No thanks. No matter how I look at it, I'll be the loser." Qi Juyin raised her hand and threw something to Xiao Chuye, who caught it with both hands. It was an unusually heavy executioner's blade, still in its sheath. "Li Bei raised some fine battle steeds for Qidong last year, thanks to you. That thing was forged by the best craftsmen in our camps, and cost me a good bit in precious materials, too," Qi Juyin said. "How about it? Not losing out now, huh?" Xiao Chuye weighed it in his hands and laughed. "Marshal, from now on you're my dearest older sister. The blade I brought from home is decent, but far too light. This one feels much better in the hand." "Sister," Qi Juyin echoed. "Show some respect. Wait till you unsheath the blade. You'll be calling me Grandpa." I love her. "Does this blade have a name?" Xiao Chuye asked. "I actually thought of one," Qi Juyin said. "Those who speak of a wolf's ruthlessness speak of an animal appetite. Isn't that just perfect for you? Why not wolf's fang?" Lu Guangbai countered. "The word ruthlessness is a little too vicious. He's only..." "Vicious." Qi Juyin snapped her riding crop, and her horse bolted. Without looking back, she called, "A son of Li Bei should be precisely that, vicious." The mass of troops in the distance had already started moving. A sea of red-tasseled spears from the Qidong garrison troops followed at Qi Juyin's heels, surging toward the eastern plains. Also, there is art. Art of this excellent moment. Tossing the sword. "Henry, I think you're right. Just the way that Wolf's Fang is being introduced, the whole thing about how he's vicious, all of it, it does seem kind of, I don't know, it seems important. I don't know what it means, but it seems to point to something." Lu Guangbai could tarry no longer. He waved a hasty goodbye to Xiao Chuye, then spurred his horse to catch up. Xiao Chuye heard the thunder of hooves so loud against the ground, it seemed as if the earth itself quaked underfoot. He looked out into the distance and saw his older brother in the lead. Like a black tide, the familiar armored cavalry of Li Bei rose up along the snowy plains and swept north. The Ger-falcon cut through the air to chase after them. It wheeled over the armored cavalry and screeched. Xiao Chuye stood, clutching his blade, watching until they disappeared into the snowy expanse. Shen Zichuan's wandering mind was pulled back by a rasp from Grand Mentor Qi. The various generals have returned to their bases, and Chudu is once again at an impasse. Grand Mentor Qi, his loose hair spread over his shoulders, craned his neck to look at Shen Zichuan. "Time is short. You mustn't sit back and accept your fate as a turtle trapped in a jar." "I'm as much at their mercy as meat on the chopping board." Shen Zichuan looked up. "Xiansheng, Is there really a chance I could leave this place? Fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Confinement may not necessarily be a bad thing. Grand Mentor Chi unstoppered his gourd and took a few gulps of wine. It's easier to hide your strengths behind closed doors. You will have plenty of opportunities to display them in the future. In the distance, the palace bells tolled. A new year had begun. And that is the end of the chapter. Blue, you are so correct. If his sword is his wolf's fangs, then that makes him a puppy. It's the law. We are on page 123 for chapter 12, Duanwu Festival. Oh my god, okay. I had a moment like this when Yuwu did this to me. Like a sudden passage of time. The first sentence of the chapter. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. I don't know why that just throws me off. Like, it just is like, all of a sudden, okay, we're jumping that far ahead. It was midsummer in the 8th year of Xiande. The round-collared robe of the Secretary of the Ministry of Revenue, Wang Xian, was drenched in sweat. He sat as if his chair was lined with pins and needles. Not for the first time, he lifted his black gauze official's cap to wipe his brow. Lord Xiao, Wang Xian hemmed and hawed. It's not that the Ministry of Revenue doesn't wish to disperse the funds, but at the moment, the current expenditure of the Treasury has yet to be tallied. Without Pan Gonggong's authorization, there's really no way we can release the sum. It takes time to tally the accounts, certainly. Xiao Chiye sipped his tea. I'm waiting, aren't I? Take your time. Wang Xian's throat bobbed. He glanced at Xiao Chiye, as composed as ever, and then at the Imperial Army soldiers standing stock still on the veranda outside. Your Excellency, Wang Xian said, nearly begging. The day is hot, and I feel terrible keeping the soldiers waiting outside. Let me treat everyone to some cold drinks. We have ice. The Imperial Army has done nothing to deserve your consideration. Xiao Chiye showed him a shallow smile. We're sturdy men used to manual labor. What's a few hours of standing? Pay us no mind, Your Excellency. Focus on your accounting. Blue, I just read the name Wang Xian and just did not even register that. Oops. Gripping his account book, Wang Xian held his brush over the page for a long interval. Still, he couldn't bring himself to lower it. The Emperor had fallen seriously ill in early spring of that year. In response, the Empress Dowager ordered a temple built in the palace where she could recite Buddhist scriptures and gather blessings for His Majesty. The Ministry of Works needed to ship large quantities of lumber from Duanzhou for construction, and to save money, they had called upon the Imperial Army to transport it. Not long after, the Secretariat Elder Hai came out in opposition to the project. In the face of his disapproval, the Empress Dowager withdrew her plan. By then, however, the lumber was already in the capital. The hole from this abandoned endeavor had never been filled in the Ministry of Works budget. And thus, for 2 months, they had dragged the matter out, delaying payment to the Imperial Army. Money was tight everywhere. Had the state treasury been full, there would have been no issue. Who would be willing to cross Second Young Master Xiao over such a small sum? But the Ministry of Revenue was destitute. Last year, for the Empress Dowager's birthday, they had lavished close to 1 million taels of silver on the banquet and pecuniary rewards alone. Well, Kind of sounds like your own damn fault. Wang Xian set aside his brush and decided to stick his neck out. Your Excellency, there's no way to settle the payments right now. I'll be honest, looking at the current accounts, the expenses tallied so far this year are well over the budgeted amount. Our own salaries are all up in the air. We really have no money to give you. Even if you stab me, Wang Minshun, for saying so, there's nothing I can do. So, the provisions of the 8 great battalions are distributed as usual without delay, but when it comes to the Imperial Army, you're flat broke. We all serve the Emperor here, but it seems Xiao Tzu-an is the only bastard doomed to hold this debt and wait for the treasury to fill itself. Xiao Zhiye tossed the teacup onto the table with a clatter. Every year, the Ministry of Revenue cries poverty, but how is that my problem? We do the work, and you pay the money. It's right there in black and white. The work is done, so payment must be made. As for anything else, I don't want to hear it. It's not my responsibility. If everyone has to forgive the problems of the Ministry of Revenue, what's left for you to do? Best vacate the position and let someone else take over. Wang Xian sprang to his feet, livid. If we're all serving the Emperor, why is your Excellency intent on pushing me into a corner? Who would be unwilling to settle the account if we had the money? If the Imperial Army is so capable, why bother with manual labor? Go do what the 8 great battalions do. Let's see who is so bold as to withhold your money then. Just as the atmosphere threatened to tip into violence, another voice rang out. There's no need for anger, Lord Wang. The second young master is simply a forthright man who speaks his mind. The newcomer took off his wide-brimmed hat and wiped his hands with a handkerchief. This humble one is the Chief Supervising Secretary from the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue, Xue Xiuzhuo. The Office of Scrutiny for Revenue is a crazy name. I'm here regarding this very account. The Chief Supervising... Oh god, am I gonna have to read this multiple times? The Chief Supervising Secretary of the Office of Scrutiny for Revenue was merely a 7th rank position, technically not even considered a court official in Chudu. However, it was a unique post. Not only did the office holder supervise the works in progress of the Ministry of Revenue, he also participated in the reviews and appraisals of officials that took place every 6 years. On top of that, he could bypass any of the 6 ministries to appeal directly to the Emperor himself. Henry, you're right. Like, because royalty, they had to throw a big party and spend a bunch of money, even though it did not make any sense. But yeah, like, to be fair to them, I guess their hands were kind of tied. And I lost my place. This was a person Wang Xian could not afford to offend. He swallowed his pride. How could I be angry? The Imperial Army has contributed so much. I don't want Lord Xiao to have worked for nothing. But Yan Qing, just look at this account. We simply don't have the funds. Xue Xiuzhuo, courtesy name Yan Qing, had a scholarly and refined bearing. He spoke without even looking at the accounts. I'm aware of the difficulties faced by the Ministry of Revenue. How about this, Argongza? The city of Chuancheng shipped us a batch of silk recently. We'll settle your account with an equivalent value in silk. Would that be acceptable? It seemed it was. The instant Xiao Qiye was gone, Wang Xian's expression turned cold. He's not demanding payment for the Imperial Army, he told Xue Xiuzhuo. More likely, he's squandering it himself. Ever since the second young master took up the reins of the Imperial Army, he's been leading a life of drunken debauchery. Yet he pushes us to our limit every time, unwilling to show a shred of empathy. Xue Xiaozhuo smiled and said nothing. Xiao Qiye left the Ministry of Revenue's office and rode toward Donglong Street. He was much taller now than 5 years ago. His youthful drive and vigor somewhat faded. Prince Chu had been waiting for him all morning. As soon as he spied Xiao Qiye, the prince started badgering him. "Where the hell have you been? I nearly died of boredom." Fooling around, Xiao Qiye sat and gulped down a cold drink. On seeing the basin of ice set nearby to cool the room, he sighed and stretched out on the settee. "This is so comfortable. My head is spinning from the heat outside. I'm going to take a nap." "You can't." Li Jianheng waved his bamboo fan vigorously, the front of his robe wide open in the heat. He sighed. "At least let me finish talking before you sleep." Who knew what mischief Xiao Qiye had been up to all night, but he was obviously flagging. He hummed absent-mindedly. Li Jianheng sipped some chilled wine out of a cup held in a courtesan's slender hand. "Do you remember that girl I told you about? The one I was keeping in my villa 5 years ago? I was preparing to take her as my own, until that son of a bitch Xiao Fuzi took her and offered her to the castrated bastard Pan Rugui." Xiao Qiye murmured acknowledgement. "Well," Li Jianheng continued, more animated by the second, "I recently left the capital to escape the summer heat, and saw her near the villa. The girl's kept herself so smooth and tender, even lovelier than 5 years ago. My heart was pounding just looking at her. How I hate those eunuchs. That thieving son of a bitch came out of nowhere and broke up a blossoming romance. He thinks that's the end of it? No way." Xiao Qiye yawned. "Are we brothers or not?" Li Jianheng fumed. "Help me think of a way to get back at him. Maybe we can't touch Pan Rugui, but that Xiao Fuzi needs a good thrashing." Xiao Qiye was truly exhausted. "What do you want to do? Have him dragged out of the palace?" Li Jianheng pushed aside the courtesan waiting on him and snapped his fan shut. "The Duanwu festival is around the corner. His Majesty will be at the West Gardens to watch the dragon boat race. Pan Rugui will doubtless be there too. Where he goes, Xiao Fuzi follows. We can lure him out during the horse race and beat him to death." Xiao Qiye seemed to have dropped off. "Ce-an, did you hear me?" "Bad idea to beat him to death," Xiao Qiye said without opening his eyes. "If you make an enemy of Pan Rugui over this, you'll be in for a world of trouble." "But we can at least give him a beating, right?" Li Jianheng whined. "If I don't vent my anger, I won't even be able to eat. What's up with you lately? You always look half asleep. What are you getting up to at night? And why did you send away the virgin I picked for you last time?" Xiao Qiye acknowledged Li Jianheng's words with a wave of his hand. There was no ring on his thumb, but the bite between his thumb and forefinger had left its mark. When Li Jianheng started in on something else, Xiao Qiye turned a deaf ear to it all. We were talking about that last time, right? That we were hoping that there would be a scar from the bite. We are winning today. A few days later, on the occasion of Duanwu, the long-absent Xiande Emperor dragged his sickly bones to the West Gardens. I am surprised he's not dead yet. The imperial ladies accompanying him donned gauzy robes of sheer silk, while Ji Lei and the commander-in-chief of the 8 great battalions, Shi Guan, jointly escorted the emperor. As the imperial army had nothing but spare time, they invited Xiao Qiye along as well. Xiao Qiye was last to arrive. In keeping with custom, the Xianda Emperor had already hung up the willow branch to ward against evil, and was waiting for the horse race to begin. The court of imperial entertainments, as part of the entourage, served sticky rice dumplings and pastries at each seat. From his spot in the prince's seats, Li Jianheng waved Xiao Chuye over. Xiao Chuye tossed his riding crop to his right-hand man, Chen Yang, who followed a few steps behind him. He loosened his arm guards as he took his seat. "What took you so long? The anxiety is killing me," Li Jianheng complained, clutching the bamboo fan he favored. "You're anxious every day," Xiao Chuye shot back. "You sure you're all right?" "I'm just used to saying it," Li Jianheng responded, fanning himself. "Look, see that? Xiao Fuzi is serving over there." Xiao Chuye followed his gaze and saw Xiao Fuzi beaming as he spoke into Pan Rugui's ear. "Hang back later," he said. "We'll get someone to give him that beating." Xiao Fuzi stepped onto the edge of the latrine pit an hour later, ready to relieve himself. Without warning, his vision went black. Someone had thrown a sack over his head. "Hey!" Xiao Fuzi shrieked, but was quickly knocked down with a blow to the neck. Li Jianheng wasted no time. He lifted his robe and started kicking him. Xiao Fuzi, gagged by the sack, groaned in pain as he writhed on the ground. The race nearby was nearing its midpoint. No one heard a thing. After beating Xiao Fuzi for the better part of an hour, Chen Yang stopped Li Jianheng, who still hadn't had his fill. Chen Yang shot a glance at the prince's manor guards behind them, and they hurriedly darted off with the sack. Henry, I read that and I was like, no, don't say anything. "Your Highness," he said, "he would have died if you continued. Perhaps next time." Li Jianheng straightened his robe and glanced at Chen Yang. "Where are they dumping him?" "The Supreme Commander ordered us to dump him in the woods by the lake. Once the banquet begins, the serving eunuchs will pass that way, and he will be freed." Li Jianheng spat on the ground where Xiao Fuzi had suffered and finally returned to his seat. "Thank you, Henry, for saying it for me." By the start of the banquet, Li Jianheng had forgotten all about the little eunuch. Xiao Chuye kept an eye out, looking over occasionally at Pan Rugui, but saw no sign of Xiao Fuzi. He was probably humiliated and ran back to change his clothes, Li Jianheng said between bites. Eunuchs who serve before the emperor have a terrible fear of appearing dirty and being disdained by the masters. "Do you want to come to my villa in a few days for some fun? You can see that little lady I was talking about, too." "I'm busy," Xiao Chuye said, sipping his cold tea. Li Jianheng snickered. "Still putting on an act, even in front of me? You, busy? The Imperial Army is on the verge of dissolution. What could possibly keep you busy in such an idle position?" Xiao Chuye laughed in return. "Busy drinking." His eyes were fixed on the tea in his hand. His side profile revealed the flippant quirk of his mouth. "The internal reviews are starting in autumn. I have to buy a few rounds if I want to hold on to this idle position." Being human, Li Jianheng tapped the table with his chopsticks, "is about living in luxury and shunning productivity. The constant fighting, the so-called Pan faction, the Hua clan, aren't they tired? Where's the pleasure in that?" "Yeah," Xiao Chuye's grin grew wicked. "Isn't that just asking for a hard time? Having fun is life's greatest satisfaction." Li Jianheng matched his sly expression. "So what's the deal with this review? Who would dare deny my dear brother his post?" You were personally appointed by His Majesty. We loaf on imperial orders. How about this? I'll host a flower viewing feast at my residence before autumn, and we invite them all. There's no hurry. Xiao Qie cast his eyes over the west gardens and spotted a familiar roof behind the cascade of overlapping eaves. He frowned. This place is rather close to the Temple of Guilt. Still thinking about it, huh? It's been ages since you lost that thumb ring. Xiao Qie rubbed his thumb out of habit. That Shen clan remnant has been locked up for 5 years. There's been no news of him all this time. His Majesty never even inquired whether the boy died or went insane, Li Jianheng said. If I were locked in there, forget 5 years, I'd have cracked in a week. The scar on Xiao Qie's hand ached. He'd no desire to bring up that person. The sound of drums rose by the lakeside. Li Jianheng tossed down his chopsticks and jumped to his feet. Let's go. The dragon boat race is starting. They're definitely taking bets. Xiao Qie made to rise when he saw Jilei hurry through the crowd and lean over to whisper in Pan Rugui's ear. Pan Rugui whipped his head around to stare at him. An instant later, he banged heavily on his table. Xiao Qie shot a swift glance at Chen Yang. My lord, Chen Yang began, stunned. Your Majesty. Jilei was already kneeling before the Emperor, his voice carrying. I'm afraid the dragon boat race cannot go on. Just now, when this humble one was patrolling the grounds with the embroidered uniform guard, we fished Xiao Fuzi, a eunuch of the imperial palace, from the water. The Xiande emperor coughed violently. Pan Rugui stepped forward to stroke his back. When the coughing subsided, the emperor managed. What was he doing in the water? Jilei raised his head. It wasn't clear if he looked to the emperor or the empress dowager. He drowned, he answered, voice heavy. A commotion broke out among the palace ladies, who covered their gasps with silk handkerchiefs. Li Jianheng had knocked over the teacup on his table. In a panic, he picked it up and looked at Xiao Qie. I swear I didn't mean it. Yeah, I didn't think he was going to survive. That is the end of the chapter. Dramatic crowd gasp. I am going to take like a 5 to 10 minute break. And when we come back, we'll be on page 133 for chapter 13, which is called Little Cicada. So I will see y'all in just a bit. Hello, I'm back. I am back and ready for more QJJ. I noticed the upcoming chapters are, this must be like a very well-known, Chinese saying. There's something about the cicada, or no, the praying mantis hunts the cicada not knowing that an oriole is behind it, hunting the praying mantis. It's something like that. Because the upcoming chapters that I am hopefully going to have time to all read on the stream are Little Cicada, Praying Mantis, and then Oriole. So, interesting. So, right now we are on page 133 for chapter 13, Little Cicada. Xiao Chuye righted the lid of the teacup, carefully not looking at Li Jianheng. "Don't fret," he said. Li Jianheng slumped back in his chair, scared out of his wits. With His Majesty here, and the guards so watchful, how could someone simply drown like that? The Empress Dowager asked. Your Majesty, Jilei addressed her, this humble subject has already sent the corpse for the coroner's examination. We will have more details soon. What do you mean? The specter of constant illness had cast a pall over the Xiande Emperor. He frowned gloomily. Was there something strange about his death? He was covered in bruises, Your Majesty, Jilei replied. He had clearly received a beating before he went into the water. Xiao Fuzi was a palace eunuch, but held no important post in the 24 yamen. And there's a footnote. That is an institution of eunuchs serving the emperor and his household in matters of household administration and domestic comforts. He was only His Majesty's personal eunuch. If he was tortured, then I'm afraid the murderer might have more sinister motives. The Xiande Emperor rose, supporting himself on the edge of the table. We have only just stepped out of the palace, he said coldly, and somebody's so impatient. Your Majesty. Hai Liangyi stepped forward and knelt. The embroidered uniform guard and the 8 great battalions are on rotation duty today. If the eunuch's murderer really had grander designs, would he have done such a sloppy job of it? Xiao Fuzi often left the palace on errands to purchase this or that. It's not impossible for him to have made personal enemies outside. I'm afraid I disagree, Renshi, Secretariat Elder Hua Siqian said from his seat. Any man who dares strike this close to the throne plainly has no regard for His Majesty or the officials here. What commoner outside the palace would have the gall? Xiao Chuye sat stock still as the gears turned in his mind. Chen Yang had dragged Xiao Fuzi into the woods at noon. Within the time it took an incense stick to burn, the eunuchs carrying the banquet dishes and the 8 great battalions patrol should have passed by. Countless people would have left their seats to change clothes, drink tea, or make a trip to the latrine. The guests present today were of the highest status. Moreover, the accompanying guards and eunuchs all had the right to move freely within the garden. As all these people were going to and fro, someone only needed to give Xiao Fuzi a light kick, and he would have drowned in the pond. At this point, the thorniest issue was not the bruises on Xiao Fuzi's body, but the fact that Jilei had changed the narrative, turning this petty murder case into suspected treason. Xiao Chuye rested a fingertip on the lid of his teacup. This fire must never spread to Prince Chu. The emperor was gravely ill, and even the court of imperial physicians was at its wits' end. No one could predict the moment heavens ordained would depart this world. And the Xiande emperor had no heirs. Once the inevitable came to pass, Li Jianheng would be next in line for succession. Today, Xiao Qiye had been too careless. Li Jianheng's absence from the banquet earlier was glaring. He couldn't dismiss it with a perfunctory excuse. The Xiao clan was already on thin ice. If they were suspected of bringing their swords to bear in the matter of succession, the mere existence of 120,000 Li Bei cavalry would be enough to drop the executioner's blade on Xiao Jiming's neck. The situation had snowballed. It was already an avalanche bearing down on him. He had to stop it. Xiao Qiye flung down his teacup, shattering it on the table. The sound rang out crisp and clear, drawing glances from everyone at the banquet. Looking at him apprehensively, Li Jianheng stuttered, "An." Xiao Qiye rose from his seat and strode toward the throne. Sinking to his knees, he declared, "Your Majesty, this humble subject daren't hide this from you. The one who ordered this man's beating was I." The Xiande Emperor fixed his gaze on him. He was but a palace eunuch. What grudge did you bear him that you would go so far? Jilei also looked askance at him. "Lord Xiao, this is a matter of grave importance. You mustn't take the blame for another simply because of personal ties." "What grave importance?" Xiao Qiye said offhandedly. "This humble subject sees no crime here. So what if I beat a lowly eunuch? I am the supreme commander of the imperial army and a second-rank official. Don't tell me I have to put up with insolence from that bastard." "To incite such fury from Argongze, this must be no ordinary grudge," Hua Siqin said. "Except Xiao Fuzi doesn't usually cross your path. What happened to anger you so?" "The Secretariat Elder is unaware of this," Xiao Qiye began. "But on my way to the drill grounds a few months ago, that bastard sedan blocked my horse's way. You ought to have seen the pompous display he put on. I'd have thought it was Pan Gonggong himself had he not lifted the curtain. I offered a few words of rebuke, and he boldly mouthed off to me. What real man would allow himself to be humiliated by a filthy, castrated wretch right there in the street? I doubt anyone here could stomach it in silence." The assembled guests flinched at Xiao Qiye's choice of words. All eyes turned to Pan Rugui, standing conspicuously by the emperor's side. As the Xiande emperor deliberated, the Empress Dowager chimed in. Be that as it may, killing at the slightest provocation is not the behavior of a gentleman. These words seemed to move Pan Rugui to tears. The gray-haired man knelt, his eyes red-rimmed. "Your Majesty's mercy is a grace from above. We servants are lowly creatures. How could we compare to the second young master? Xiao Fuzi has been spoiled rotten. He was ignorant of etiquette when encountering military officials of the court. Even after receiving the second young master's guidance, he remained unrepentant. This servant has been remiss in his instruction. As his teacher, I am to blame for the faults of the child." His tone was conciliatory, but the law was clear. Eunuchs were required to dismount and kowtow in greeting upon meeting a minister or official of the court. The Empress Dowager was a staunch Buddhist. She was greatly displeased at the wanton taking of lives. She turned to the Xiande Emperor. "It has ever been said that all men are equal in the eyes of the law. Whether it was perpetrated to satisfy sentiment or reason, Xiao Qiye's unruly violence cannot be treated lightly. Besides, the Xiao clan are known to be loyal and upright men. The Prince of Li Bei sent his son to Chudu to be raised under your Majesty's eye. If we indulge him until he thinks himself above the law, we will have disappointed the Prince of Li Bei who left him in our care." Jilei, too, was indignant. Unwilling to let the matter go, he spoke up. The second young master has always been friendly with Prince Chu. As for this act tonight, His Highness is also... This humble subject is not finished. Xiao Qiye cut him off. I said I was the one who beat him, but I didn't kill him. Your Majesty, I had indeed intended to take his life to vent my fury. But when His Highness Prince Chu found out, he persuaded me against it. The beating today was meant to be carried out by my guards on the sly, yet His Highness noticed something amiss, and left his seat to save Xiao Fuzi's life. With Prince Chu standing by, this humble subject didn't dare rebuff His Highness's teachings, and thus I let Xiao Fuzi off with his life. As for his drowning, I find it strange as well. Who would take up my grudge to do such an unwise thing? Lord Ji, Xiao Qiye turned to Ji Lei, his eyes faintly gleaming. The embroidered uniform guard is usually meticulous and impeccable in their work. This eunuch was left just at the edge of the road today, yet he managed to dodge the patrols and drown in the pond. Perhaps he could not orient himself with his head covered, and tumbled in himself. A good point, Hai Liang Yi agreed. A person fell into the pond, and the embroidered uniform guard, though they walked back and forth patrolling the grounds, were none the wiser. If assassins were to infiltrate the West Gardens today, they mightn't notice that either. Ji Lei didn't dare stir up any more trouble. He dropped to the ground and kowtowed a few times, panicked. Your Majesty, the embroidered uniform guard have our own constraints. The guards are sharing patrol duty with the 8 great battalions today. We organize manpower carefully when relieving each squad. We would never neglect the tiniest detail. The military commissioner of the 8 great battalions, Shi Guan, knelt as well. It's as he says, Your Majesty. The 8 great battalions also take this matter very seriously. The patrol rotation follows a fixed schedule. It's not impossible for someone to have memorized it and seized their moment to kill Xiao Fuzi. This is a personal grudge. Anyone with grievances against this eunuch, Xiao Fuzi, must be thoroughly investigated. Do it then. The Xianda Emperor laughed in anger, flinging his teacup at Shi Guan. A man died right under your noses. Instead of reflecting on your actions, you speak only of shirking responsibility. To think we actually put our safety into your... The Emperor's voice went hoarse. He covered his mouth as the coughing took him. His rage seemed to scorch his very lungs. He reached down to support himself on the table, then crumpled to the ground. Your Majesty! Shrill cries of alarm issued from the palace ladies, and chaos spread like fire through the banquet hall. The Empress Dowager sank to her knees to support him. Summon the imperial physicians, quickly. When Xiao Qiye finally made his way back to Li Jianheng's side, the prince regarded him as his own kin. Brother of my own blood, he cried, you scared the life out of me. I've been kneeling for ages. I'm starving. Is there anything to eat? Li Jianheng motioned for someone to run and fetch some food. Standing on a veranda in the West Gardens, the pair looked toward the brightly lit hall. When His Majesty wakes, he'll ask for you again, Li Jianheng said. How did Xiao Fuzi end up in the pond? What shit luck I have. Xiao Qiye washed his snacks down with cold tea. This was a delicate matter. Xiao Fuzi had always enjoyed Pan Rugui's favor. Even if someone had plotted to take his life, how could the timing dovetail so perfectly with Li Jianheng's beating? If it wasn't a premeditated attempt to kill Xiao Fuzi, but a spur-of-the-moment decision, it would have been vastly more advantageous to untie him than to kill him. Pan Rugui and Ji Lei had reacted far too swiftly. The man's body had hardly cooled, yet they had made full use of him. And if they could pin his death on Prince Chu, so much the better. Has His Majesty spent his nights with any lady in particular recently? Xiao Qiye asked offhandedly. Sure, Li Jianheng answered. Lately, he favors the lady from the Wei clan. The Empress Dowager likes her too. Xiao Qiye looked thoughtful. By now night had fallen, but no one dared to leave. The guests from the banquet clustered in small groups along the veranda, waiting for the emperor to wake. Shi Guan had left the courtyard at some point in the evening. When he returned, he went to wait inside the hall on the Empress Dowager's orders. After an hour, Xiao Qiye saw a footman dressed in clean but simple clothes enter through the side gate, escorted by members of the 8 great battalions. Who is that? Xiao Qiye asked. Li Jianheng craned his neck. A footman? There are plenty here, aren't there? Why are they bringing this one? Even under the dim light of lanterns, Xiao Qiye's sharp eyes spotted twisting burn scars marring the footman's face. His heart pounded as an ominous premonition took shape in his mind. The West Gardens are noble grounds meant to host the Emperor. Those who wait upon him must please the eye. How could such a footman serve here? Some time later, Pan Rugui stepped out of the hall. Summon the 8th son of the Shen clan. Bring him at once for an audience with the Emperor. Uproar immediately broke out among the officials, the sounds of chatter echoing off every wall. Though no final judgment had been made on the case of Shenwei's treason, his blackened name had spread far and wide. Zhongbo's wounds had yet to heal. Even now, Shenwei bore the blame for the troops' defeat. That the last member of the Shen clan had escaped with his life was already cause for resentment on the frontiers. How could he be permitted to walk free? Li Jianheng panicked. What's going on? Don't tell me they discovered something more. There's enmity between the two of you. You see red whenever you lay eyes on him. For the sake of the Xiao clan, they should keep him locked up. Xiao Qiye said nothing, but merely shifted his gaze to the door and stared with rapt attention. In less than half the time it took to burn a stick of incense, a guard strode into the courtyard, followed closely by another man. His hair had grown long in the last 5 years. It cascaded down his back, secured only with a crude wooden hairpin and no crown. His worn, wide-sleeved robe hid his wrists from view, but the hands that peeked from them were fair and lustrous as porcelain. A lantern obstructed Xiao Qiye's sight, but Li Jianheng dropped his teacup when Shen Zichuan walked into view. You never told me he looked like this, Li Jianheng muttered. Xiao Qiye's thumb unconsciously curled. Shen Zichuan passed before the walkway where they stood. Xiao Qiye watched him with cold detachment. In that split second, he locked gazes with a pair of eyes he remembered well. Those eyes were long and narrow, their ends extending in a delicate upward curve. Even in the dim glow of the lantern, the irises glittered like lost stars. Shen Zichuan's lips seemed to curl in a hint of a smile as he glanced at Xiao Qiye, so faint that once he passed it left no trace. It had come and gone like the chill night wind. Oh, that's good. That's so good. That's the end of the chapter. I forgot which character. There is a character that we know has burn scars, right? Like, am I just imagining that, or did we already know somebody who had burn scars? It's not. I don't know. I'm blanking on who it is. If it's not a If it's not a spoiler, like if it's just something, oh, it is Shenzichuan Shifu. It's Jigong. Okay. I was like, is that Jigong? And then I was like, no. Okay. Good to know. Interesting. Well, we are on page 143 for chapter 14, which is Praying Mantis. Shen Zichuan followed the guard inside and knelt before the hanging curtains. The Xianda Emperor leaned against the head of the bed, while the Empress Dowager sat, straight-backed, beside it. Pan Rugwei stepped back with the bowl of medicine he was holding, to reveal Shen Zichuan's presence to them. The Emperor made an effort to gather himself. The patrol from the 8 great battalions said they saw your footman beside the pond. We ask you, what was he doing there? To answer your majesty, Shen Zichuan said, Ge Shu was waiting for Fu Gongong from the palace. On whose orders? Shen Zichuan paused, then kowtowed. On this offending subject's orders. The emperor coughed feebly. You are confined to the Temple of Guilt, which receives a monthly provision of food and clothing from the palace. What connections do you have with Xiaofuzi? Upon your majesty's mercy, this offending subject was permitted to remain in the Temple of Guilt and reflect on past wrongs. Your majesty even sustained my life with food. Sadly, this offending subject recently fell ill, and coupled with my old ailment, it became increasingly difficult to get up every day. Shen Zichuan was the very picture of grief. Although the palace sends my meals, there is no medicine. Ge Shu has been assigned to the temple for a long time. He took pity on this offending subject and, seeing Fu Gongong out on an errand, asked for medicine from the palace. Later, this offending subject asked Ge Shu again to beseech Fu Gongong to bring some blessing oil lamps for me. You have no family, said the Empress Dowager. What use do you have for lamps to pray for blessings? This sinful subject is conscious of my heinous offenses. I've been praying by the lamp in the temple day and night for the health of the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. I also recite sutras for the loyal martyrs who lost their lives in Zhongbo at the Battle of Chashi. Shen Zichuan spoke piously. This offending subject has planted some vegetables on the temple's grounds and asked Ge Shu to sell them at the morning market. Since this illness of mine is unlikely to improve, it is far better to trade those coins for blessing oil lamps than spend it on medicine. The Empress Dowager sighed deeply. Although you are indeed guilty, your sins are not unforgivable. The Xianda Emperor closed his eyes, weary. Xiaofuzi is dead. Do you know of anyone who might have had a dispute with him? Shen Zichuan shook his head. He said softly, Although this offending subject was bold enough to beseech Fu Gongong to buy lamps, I have never met Fu Gongong in person, nor exchanged letters with him. And what about you? The Emperor motioned for Jigong to speak. Tell us, did he mention anything to you in passing? Jigong dared not look at the Emperor directly. He answered with a mixture of awe and fear, as any ordinary footman would. Your Majesty, whenever Fu Gongong left the palace, it was only for procurement. He had such a busy schedule. He usually sent those serving under him to meet this humble one. On hearing this, the Xianda Emperor cast a self-mocking glance at Pan Rugwei, who stood as still as a wooden statue. But once, Jigong continued, this humble servant greeted Fu Gongong in his sedan and heard him talking to his attendants. Something about His Highness flying into a humiliated rage and looking to create trouble for him. At the time, this humble servant was anxious to give Fu Gongong the money for the oil lamps, which was why I stood closer than usual. But Fu Gongong was pressed for time. He told this humble one to come to the West Gardens today instead to wait for him. That is how the guards on patrol came to see this humble servant lingering by the pond. Are you sure you heard it correctly? Panrugwe probed. It was His Highness and not someone else. Jigong kowtowed repeatedly. How would I dare deceive His Majesty? Many people saw this humble servant in the market that day. You have only to ask around to determine whether this humble one is lying. The Emperor said nothing for a long time. The heavy smell of medicine permeated the room. At last, holding a handkerchief over her nose and mouth, the Empress Dowager leaned over and said, Your Majesty, we cannot rely on Xiao Chuye's story alone to determine the motives behind Xiao Fuzi's death. This incident happened mere steps away from your imperial person. If it is as this man says, and Prince Chu was the one who wanted Xiao Fuzi dead, why would Xiao Chuye go so far to muddle the facts? Your Majesty, Panrugwe added quietly, Xiao Fuzi's life is of little consequence. If Prince Chu killed him out of personal grudge, that is no great matter. But I'm afraid things may not be so simple. His Majesty hardly steps out of the palace, while Xiao Fuzi repeatedly came and went. Why didn't Prince Chu choose some other day? Why now? The Xiande Emperor doubled over with another spate of coughing. He pushed aside Panrugwe's hand and used his own handkerchief to wipe the blood on his lips. Jianheng is our own brother, he said without looking up. We understand his temperament better than anyone. Since the case has already progressed this far, Ji Lei may see it to its end. All of this happened because Xiao Fuzi abused his station, lorded over others, and overstepped his bounds, creating resentment and envy. Ah Ye shall be confined to his manor for half a month, while Ji Lei and Shi Guan shall have their salaries suspended for 3. Panrugwe, relay the message. When they've heard it, they may be dismissed. Panrugwe turned to the Empress Dowager, but the Empress Dowager was silent. The Xiande Emperor also turned to the Empress Dowager, his tone earnest. Imperial Mother, we live in troubled times. Autumn approaches, and the situation on the frontiers is precarious. Trade conflicts there increase day by day. The troops in Libei, Qidong, and its Bianjun commandery must stand fast. We cannot afford a blow to morale. If we pursue this matter and it ends up implicating certain people, it may produce dissatisfaction at the frontier. In that case, the common folks will be the ones to suffer. Although the pain of Zhongbo has passed, its humiliation has yet to be avenged in the eyes of our soldiers. We mustn't drag this case out, Imperial Mother, lest we lose the faith of the people. The Empress Dowager's brow was lined with concern as she tucked the quilt tighter around the Emperor. How blessed the Empire is. Your Majesty is still worrying over state affairs, while so gravely indisposed. Go on, Panrugwe. Panrugwe acknowledged her orders and slowly backed out the door. The way I see it, the Empress Dowager continued, the 8th son of the Shen clan wishes earnestly to repent and mend his ways. He is nothing like Shen Wei. He is a child you can use. His health is poor, said the Emperor. We're afraid he's not well enough to take up any duties. Perhaps it's better for him to continue his convalescence in the temple. The Empress Dowager slowly drew away from him. Your Majesty is right, of course. But he is already here. If we send him back now for no reason, it will arouse suspicion about the particulars of this case. Is that not contrary to your Majesty's desires? The Xiande Emperor turned to Shen Zichuan with a smile. The Empress Dowager thinks highly of you. You must keep this in mind. Don't go down the same path as your treacherous father. Let's send you to the embroidered uniform guard, then. Their 12 offices tend to a variety of duties. There will naturally be work for you to do. Shen Zichuan prostrated himself to thank the emperor for his grace. When everyone had left, the emperor leaned over the edge of his bed and threw up the medicine he had ingested earlier. His face was ashen under the dim light of the candles. The quilt covering his hands had been wrung into creases. His health was truly dire. On a veranda that stretched over the pond, the Empress Dowager walked with Pan Rugui supporting her elbow. Hua Xiangyi, arms full of fresh-picked lotus blossoms, followed at a distance alongside the maidservants. Since his last bout of illness, His Majesty has grown more obstinate, the Empress Dowager said as she walked. How can a man so gravely ill continue to wear himself down with routine matters of the state? As they say, illness strikes quick as an onrushing avalanche. Convalescence comes slow as pulling silk from a cocoon, Pan Rugui said. His Majesty is merely anxious to get back on his feet. When I selected Jian Yun back then, it was because I valued his gentle and refined ways, as well as his biddable nature. He has frequently been in poor health over the years, yet he has done his best. The Empress Dowager glanced at Pan Rugui and continued. But who could predict his great fear of the Xiao clan? Every time he must make a choice, he tries to not offend either party. But you can't always please everyone. When it comes to Chudu, Your Majesty's words are what matters. Once the imperial concubine, Lady Wei, is pregnant with the son, Your Majesty need worry no longer. The Empress Dowager raised her hand and patted Pan Rugui's supporting arm. She said meaningfully, Before concubine Wei is with child, we'll need you to keep close watch over His Majesty's health. Yes, Your Majesty, Pan Rugui replied. The servant has been keeping a sharp eye. The crowd was scattering by the time Shen Zichuan came out with Jigong behind him. They emerged just in time to see Xiao Qiye riding out. I thought the Imperial Army was a dead end for idlers. Eyeing Xiao Qiye's waist and legs, Shen Zichuan added, but judging from his physique, he's clearly kept up with his training. We're all about the waist and the legs. An expert in horseback archery, Jigong narrowed his eyes and studied Xiao Qiye's retreating back. But without exchanging blows with him, I can't guess the lad's strength. If he could already draw the mighty bows of Li Bei 5 years ago, I'm afraid he's even stronger now. Don't fight him, Chuan Er, unless absolutely necessary. Before Shen Zichuan could answer, Xiao Qiye suddenly reined his horse around and charged straight at him. Shen Zichuan stared Xiao Qiye down without dodging or giving way. He watched the horse draw closer and closer, brushing past him by a hair's breadth at the last second. Shen Zichuan's wide sleeves fluttered with the gust of wind and settled back down in its wake. What does this case have to do with you? Xiao Qiye's horse circled Shen Zichuan. It has nothing to do with me. Shen Zichuan smiled up at him again. But it has plenty to do with you, Gongzi. Pan Rugui lost his lapdog, and I took a tumble from grace. No one reaped any benefits today except you. Xiao Qiye leaned over his saddle and peered down at him. You don't stay down for long, I'll give you that. But how do you get so lucky? Shen Zichuan looked back at him and replied with humility. It's all thanks to association with Gongzi's noble aura. If it weren't for the move you made, how would I have seized this opportunity? Xiao Qiye's eyes were cold. You certainly are well informed. A cheap trick is all, Shen Zichuan said. Xiao Qiye glanced up at the sky. The Gur-falcon had a sparrow in its grasp, and was hovering mid-air, awaiting its reward. So you've been let out. He whistled, and the Gur-falcon landed on the rooftop and tore apart the little bird in its claws. Turning back to Shen Zichuan, he continued, Chudu is large. One has to find entertainment somehow. A noble truly is a rarefied creature, Shen Zichuan said. Even the entertainment you seek differs from the common man. Dining, whining, whoring, and gambling are all beneath your station. You prefer to play with lives. But playing alone isn't as fun as playing together. It wouldn't be very interesting to have only me for company. The corners of Xiao Qiye's mouth quirked up as he said, riding crop in hand, Looking at you is interesting enough. Why would I want others to come between us? That's an honor too great for me to bear, Shen Zichuan said. Besides, I've found so many friends for Argongza. Better to worry about yourself than me. Xiao Qiye shifted his gaze. There are such good prospects in the embroidered uniform guard, and Jile thinks so highly of you. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to your eminent presence. Shen Zichuan chuckled. He looked at Xiao Qiye, eyes curved in a smile, and said gently, You and I are but birds in a cage. I may have good prospects, but aren't you also confined by your comforts? Yet I am alone with no tethers, and therefore free from worries and concerns. Are you, Argongza? The backdrop of hanging lanterns haloed Shen Zichuan's jade-like beauty. The Gur-falcon finished with his feast and landed on Xiao Qiye's shoulder. If we're all caged birds, Xiao Qiye said, flicking dust from his falcon's feathers, why pretend to be free? That was good. That was a scene. That was a good scene. Shen Zichuan returned to the temple, took his medicine, and sat in the courtyard across a small table from Grand Mentor Qi. Okay, pause. That's interesting, because I kind of was assuming that Shen Zichuan was lying about being sick to, like, cover up something else that he was trying to do. But it just says he took his medicine, so he's really taking medicine for something. Ji Gong had cleared out the courtyard in the Temple of Guilt, and at Grand Mentor Qi's request, planted bamboo and even a vegetable garden. It had become quite the refreshing place to sit on a summer night. His Majesty has no desire to pursue the matter, Shen Zichuan said. He allowed my release to protect Prince Chu. Xiansheng's foresight truly is incredible. Whether it's incredible or not, it's too early to tell. Grand Mentor Qi tapped a Wei Qi piece on the table and clicked his tongue. They say His Majesty's been in such poor health since the beginning of the year that he's confined to his bed. The man's in the prime of his life, with the whole court of imperial physicians attending him. Yet he's weaker now than he was in his prince's manner. Pan Rugui may very well deserve the credit for this. Ji Gong squatted at the entrance, grinding a stone. Much of His Majesty's fury was directed at them. Even Ji Lei didn't escape punishment. I'd guess he's been harboring resentment for a long time. When one feels their time is running out, they will grow bolder, Grand Mentor Qi said. As Emperor, he spent his entire life making concessions. Shen Zichuan finished his medicine and wrinkled his nose at the bitter aftertaste. The Empress Dowager has no love for Prince Chu, but he's the only one who can ascend the throne. Jile took several swipes at the prince today. If you told me Pan Rugui put him up to it, I'd believe it. But if Pan Rugui is set on sending Prince Chu to his doom, it'll be because he's no longer concerned about consequences. There must be another heir, somewhere in the palace. Someone easier to manipulate than Prince Chu. The late emperor was a man in control of his appetites. Jigong blew the dust from his rock. So I doubt it. Anyhow, if there was such an heir, how could they have kept him hidden all these years? As long as Li blood runs in him, he's an imperial heir. Grand Mentor Qi held a Wei Qi piece between his fingers. The late emperor might not have another son, but can't the current emperor beget one? Once a future emperor is born in the inner palace, after this one breathes his last, the Empress Dowager will be free to hold court with the babe in her arms. She can set aside the screen altogether. They can appoint Hua Siqian the regent minister. When that time comes, our great Zhou will truly belong to the Hua. But Xiao Qiye is close to Prince Chu. The Xiao clan has nothing to lose and everything to gain if Prince Chu ascends the throne. Shen Zichuan rolled his own Wei Qi piece between his fingers. In no world would Li Bei simply stand aside and watch. As long as Prince Chu lives, Xiao Jiming and Lu Guangbai of the Bianjun Commandery can command their troops to storm Chudu in his name. The 8 great battalions don't stand a chance. Grand Mentor Qi propped his elbows on the table and scratched at his unkempt hair. Think, Lanzhou. You think the Empress Dowager hasn't considered that? Why do you imagine they kept Xiao Qiye here 5 years ago? With Xiao Qiye in their hands, Xiao Jiming won't make any rash move. Chudu's 8 battalions don't stand a chance against Li Bei's armored cavalry. But what about the garrison troops of Qidong? The Qi clan has no dog in this fight. Qi Juyin and her troops would be obligated to stop Xiao Jiming, if only for the sake of demonstrating fealty to the throne. As Shen Zichuan contemplated in silence, Jigong asked, "Isn't our emperor still alive? What's the point in worrying about that now? Tomorrow, Chuan Er joins the embroidered uniform guard, directly under Ji Lei's command. Now that's what I'm worried about." That's why I said I don't have incredible foresight, Grand Mentor Qi snapped irritably. Sending Lan Zhou to the embroidered uniform guard is a means of freeing him, which happens to match the Empress Dowager's wishes. But does the Emperor really not remember who interrogated Lan Zhou in the Imperial prison? Why do you think he's pushing known adversaries together like this? Jigong, I meant to ask, when you found Xiao Fuzi today, was he really still breathing? Jigong wiped away the dust on the stone with a fingertip. After a moment, he answered, "It's hard to say. There wasn't time to take a closer look." And there we are. Grand Mentor Qi turned back to Shen Zichuan. Think carefully. If Xiao Fuzi was already dead before we laid our hands on him, then who did it? There is so much going on right now. Also, Wolf agreed. $50 say it's our main character, Shen Zichuan being the secret heir. That does, signs seem to be pointing to that. I don't know if it's like a trick or it's just like, that's really him. But that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. So, we are... Let's see. I am going to read chapter 15, and then I'll be done, and then I will have kept pace with my chapter goal, so I don't know if I might go a tiny bit over, but it looks like it's not a long chapter, so we should be good. We're on page 155, Chapter 15 is Oriole. Early on the day Shen Zichuan was to visit the embroidered uniform guard offices to accept his post, Shi Guang's younger brother, Shi Hongshuan, hosted a feast for the up-and-coming scholars and promising talents in Chudu. All were invited to exchange civil discourse at Chaodong Tavern. Shi Hongshuan was an obese man. An attendant beside his chair was required to fan him without pause. "It's this humble one's lucky year," he said, another bamboo fan in his own hand. "Although I couldn't get Yan Qing to come, I managed to make Yuan Zhuo promise to grace us with his rare presence." Xue Xiuzhuo had to attend to his official duties, so he was absent. But the Yuan Zhuo Shi Hongshuan was so proud of was Yao Wenyu, the beloved pupil of the current Secretariat Elder, Hai Liangyi. These three young men addressed each other with great familiarity. They were all of the 8 great clans to begin with, and had known each other since childhood. As if on cue, the bead curtain lifted to reveal an elegant scholar, gentle and pure as jade. He was dressed in a deep blue, wide-sleeved robe with slanting collars, and a small money pouch hung at his waist. Upon hearing Shi Hongshuan's boasting, he merely smiled. The other scholars in attendance rose and offered a chorus of courteous greetings. Oh, hello, there's art of this character. I'm going to be writing down a lot of new names today, after this, again. Yao Wenyu greeted them all individually. Only after he invited everyone to take their seats did he sit himself. "My dear fellow, we meet every year. How am I worthy of the words rare presence?" As humble as he was, none present were brave enough to tease him. Yao Wenyu had been the child prodigy of Chudu since his early years. He composed poetry at 8 years old and verse at 12. This young man was the jade cradled in the palms of the old master of the Yao clan. To prevent his prodigious talents from waning, they had placed him under Hai Liangyi's tutelage. Secretariat Elder Hai was by nature inflexible and stern. To this day, he had only a single student, one he prized greatly. Blue, I agree. Pseudo really outdid themselves with the art in this novel. Yeah, every single one. Absolutely. Greetings and small talk soon yielded to discussions of the latest news. Shi Hongshuan motioned to his attendants to stop fanning him. "Something truly strange is brewing in Chudu these days. I'm sure everyone here still remembers the Prince of Jianxing, Shunwei, who self-immolated for fear of judgment 5 years ago. The vile man who colluded with our enemies and cowered from battle." One scholar straightened up from his seat. He should have been beheaded under the law. Even executing his entire clan wouldn't have been unreasonable. How unfortunate that the one wretched remnant of the Shen clan was spared thanks to His Majesty's benevolence. And just this morning, I heard he's been released. The evidence of Shenwei's crime is conclusive. How could the son of such a disgraced and defeated subject take up an official post? Are the virtuous talents from across the land expected to lie down and accept this? Precisely, Shi Hongshuan agreed. How could it be? There's no precedent for such a thing. If you ask me, Her Majesty wants to preserve him, someone else chimed in. Everyone knows this wretch has ties to the Hua clan. But how could personal relationships prevail over concerns of the state? Is this not a violation of our most basic laws? Shi Hongshuan sighed, heavy-hearted. I'm afraid this will give all the heirs of future damned officials a loophole to exploit. The idea incensed the scholars. Shenwei's crimes were so severe. How could they accept Shen Zichuan's release? What does Yuan Zhuo think? Yao Wenyu drank his tea and answered evenly. I have been away from the capital for some time, so I'm afraid I'm unfamiliar with the case. I couldn't comment. That's right, Shi Hongshuan mused. You travel so often for your studies, you aren't aware of what's happening in Chudu. Someone else spoke up. All of us here tonight are knowledgeable and widely read in the classics. We are men with the sense of honor and shame, and well acquainted with the law. We cannot stand by and do nothing. Then what should we do? Shi Hongshuan asked. The same person answered. We are all students of the Imperial College. If public sentiment opposes it loudly enough, His Majesty will have to reconsider. Why not kneel together before Mingli Hall and beseech His Majesty to retract his pardon and dole out a stronger punishment on that wretch Shen Zichuan? The guests roared their assent. Shi Hongshuan clapped his hands and cried, Excellent! All of you here are indeed the pillars of our empire. You will be remembered throughout the ages for bending your knees today. This humble one is ashamed I can't do more myself. I'm no student of the Imperial College, but I am still willing to join you. That won't do, the scholar replied. Your elder brother is the military commissioner of the 8 great battalions. If you are implicated in such an act of dissent, you stand to lose much more than you'd gain. Gentlemen will be the ones to go. The feast drew to a close. Yao Wenyu called for the server to steam some tender and palatable meat dishes to take with him. As he stood waiting, he overheard the scholars whispering as they descended the stairs. So much for that unpolished jade. Unprincipled coward is more like it. Did you see him earlier? He didn't say a single word. Hongshuan Xiong is a model of benevolence compared to him. Yao Wenyu tossed a pine nut into his mouth and laughed soundlessly. He didn't bother to confront them. By the time he stepped outside with his wrapped-up dishes, the scholars had more or less dispersed. Yuan Zhuo, Shi Hongshuan called. Shall I give you a lift? No thanks. Yao Wenyu lifted the bundle in his hand. I'm heading for my teacher's manor. Shi Hongshuan watched Yao Wenyu's departing figure until it was out of sight. Then he sneered. Let's go. Well, there's something going on there. Elsewhere, Shen Zichuan had arrived at the offices of the Embroidered Uniform Guard. From the moment he stepped over the threshold, all eyes were upon him. Every guard rushing through the compound glanced at him as they passed. Ge Qingqing led Shen Zichuan to the registry. The Embroidered Uniform Guard is made up of 4 groups. The first is selected from households designated female houses in the Yellow Register. Their sisters work in the palace. These men are exempt from military service, but as their families receive a stipend from the palace, their posts are not permanent, and they don't draw a salary here. An example is Xiao Wu. The second group received a recommendation from a palace eunuch, conferment by eunuch's recommendation. Our chief commander is one of these. The third are those born into military households, who owe their inherited positions to the blessing of legacy. I am one of these myself. The fourth are those with specialized skills. These are directly appointed by His Majesty, regardless of background. Those men are formidable indeed. You'll have a chance to meet them later. Ge Qingqing lifted the curtain and beckoned Shen Zichuan inside. This is where you come to register your name in the official records and receive your post. As Shen Zichuan entered, all noise in the registry abruptly ceased. Guards in their various uniforms, authority tokens at their waists, turned their heads as one. A bizarre silence descended on the hall. Shen Zichuan, a man sitting cross-legged at the table, pushed aside his records book and looked him over. So you're the one, huh? Noting the flying fish embroidered on the man's robe, Shen Zichuan knew he was an assistant regional commander at least. He bent in a shallow bow and replied, "The very same." The man's hair flopped over his forehead, and stubble covered his jaw. His manner and bearing were markedly sloppy. With a hand to his chin, he smiled. "As expected of the son of a dancer, you're a looker." Whatever fortune in silver Shenwei spent to win that beauty's smile was clearly worth the expense. Ching Ching, give him the token. He picked up a wooden token from the table. He had obviously anticipated Shen Zichuan's arrival, and tossed it to Ge Ching Ching. Ge Ching Ching caught the token and handed it to Shen Zichuan. "This man is Lord Judge of the Imperial Prison here in our embroidered uniform guard. He made a special trip here today just to deliver your token. The name is Chao Tianya." He motioned for Shen Zichuan to examine his new token. Shen Zichuan turned it over, read it, then looked at Chao Tianya again. "The Elephant Training Office, isn't it? That's where you'll be going, then. Ching Ching will take you over there later. But first, there are some rules. In the embroidered uniform guard, our tokens are as precious as those of the 8 great battalions. When you're not on duty, keep it safe. Never lend it to outsiders. Now, everyone is assigned duties within the 12 offices, but that isn't your primary duty. Our primary duty is to serve at His Majesty's pleasure and obey his commands. On top of your 12 offices assignment, we also serve as the Emperor's eyes and ears. If something major happens, such as your arrest 5 years ago, we need His Majesty's Imperial Edict, with the warrant penned and the arrest token approved by the Emperor himself to carry out the arrest. Allocation of men is never decided by me or the Chief Commander. Instead, to ensure no one has prior knowledge, we draw lots for every warrant delivered. Chance decides." Jigong had briefed Shen Zichuan on most of this beforehand, so he nodded and said nothing. One last thing. Chao Tianya stood. His gaze took in everyone in the hall. The embroidered uniform guard is of one mind. Once you wear our token, you are our brother. Any past grudges will disperse with the wind. There will be no tricks to frame or make fools of our brothers. If such a thing is discovered, your tokens will be revoked, your names struck off, and your next stop will be the Imperial Prison to be dealt with to the harshest capacity. Everyone immediately dropped their gazes and busied themselves with their work. Satisfied, Chao Tianya turned back to Shen Zichuan. "You may go." Shen Zichuan bowed to take his leave and followed Ge Ching Ching out the door. "I thought it would be a post in the procession guard, like the fan-bearers." Ge Ching Ching looked at Shen Zichuan. "The Elephant Training Office works too." Shen Zichuan smiled. "I had my guesses too, but I never thought I'd be raising elephants." "The Horse Training Office is the ideal post. Those golden-saddled horses are raised for the highest nobles. In that post, you get plenty of chances to meet them and get in their good graces, and it's easy to get recommended for promotion. The Elephant Training Office..." Ge Ching Ching had an odd expression on his face. "It's not an idle job, since it involves attending morning court sessions. Furthermore, those lordly elephants are a pain in the ass to serve. On the bright side, the Chief Commander rarely goes there, so it'll be difficult for him to make trouble for you." The Elephant Training Office was close to Mingli Public Road in the Imperial City, which led right to the Kailing River. When the weather was hot, the guards herded the elephants to the river to drink and bathe. They were also charged with leading 6 elephants to stand at either side of the stairs daily during morning court. In the event of a major festival or hunt, they increased the number of elephants. These elephants would not only attend morning court sessions like the officials did, they would also be dismissed from court sessions together with their human counterparts. But while the court officials were hard-pressed to take time away to convalesce when they fell ill, the elephants had no such problem. Like the embroidered uniform guard, they worked in rotating shifts. What? I don't know why this is so funny. It's just like the importance placed on the elephants and them being there at court. Like, there's no reason. There's truly no reason. Shen Zichuan had never raised so much as a dog, and now they were giving him the impossible task of raising elephants. All he could say to that was, "You never know what life has in store." He and Ge Qingqing were still on their way to Shen Zichuan's new post when they heard footsteps pelting after them. "What's the matter?" Ge Qingqing asked, turning back. The embroidered uniform guard racing up to them looked at Shen Zichuan and said solemnly, "The token has been suspended. He can't take up the post today. Hurry back to the registry." "Has the palace issued a new assignment?" Shen Zichuan asked. "There's no new order from the palace, but 3,000 students from the Imperial College are on hunger strike. They're kneeling in protest right now, beseeching His Majesty to retract his order and punish the Shen clan remnant." Ge Qingqing's countenance filled with unease as he looked at Shen Zichuan. Having been punished with house arrest for his misdeeds, Xiao Qiye spent the morning flipping through a play on his settee. Even when he heard Chen Yang announce Prince Chu's arrival, he could hardly be bothered to rise. "I'm grounded," Xiao Qiye said without looking up, and reached for a piece of fruit. "What are you doing barging in here so brazenly?" Li Jianheng tossed down Xiao Qiye's Supreme Commander token, obviously excited. "Sa'an, something big's happened." Xiao Qiye's eyelid twitched. 3,000 students have knelt to ask His Majesty to punish Shen Zichuan severely. They've been kneeling there all day, using a hunger strike to force His Majesty's hand. When His Majesty heard about it during dinner, he was so angry he collapsed into his bed. Xiao Qiye looked at the token. "Get that thing out of here. The 8 great battalions won't do anything to disperse the students, so they asked me to deliver the token to you. If the Imperial Army can disperse the students tonight, the mark against you will be written off." Li Jianheng stamped his foot anxiously. "If nothing else, can't the Imperial Army deal with a few weak students? This is a good thing." Xiao Qiye covered his face with the book. After a moment of silence, he hissed through clenched teeth. "And what a good fucking thing it is." Not only were students of the Imperial College future candidates for official positions in the Imperial Court, they had no small influence among local scholars across the country. Shi Guan knew it was risky to touch them. If Xiao Qiye laid a finger on these students tonight, he would be the first to perish under the weight of their words in the future. Sitting up, Xiao Qiye asked with his hands propped on his knees, "Where is Shen Zichuan right now?" "I heard he went to the embroidered uniform guard's registry early this morning." Li Jianheng watched Xiao Qiye jump up and throw on his clothes. "Where are we going? Are we going to look for Shen Zichuan?" Xiao Qiye raced down the stairs to where Chen Yang had already prepared his horse. In a flash, he leapt into the saddle and rode hard toward the palace. Blue, the country is truly, they are fucked. I agree. That's the end of the chapter. That was a lot. Things are happening. Politics are politicking. I'm halfway keeping up. Yeah. And yeah, Henry, I also agree. Like, this is how they're using everyone's time. It's so ridiculous. And I know that, like, certain people are concerned about how Shen Zichuan will be used politically by the Empress Dowager, but I feel like there's still a lot of people that aren't thinking about that at all, and they're literally just mad that he's Shen Wei's son. Supposedly. Because I also think that he's, like, the secret heir that the Empress Dowager is, like, keeping up her sleeve. I don't know how exactly. I will find out. But I could be totally wrong. It could be a misdirect, but I feel like that's what's happening. And just like the thing with the chapter titles, the saying that's like, you know, the praying mantis is hunting the cicada, but the oriole is behind the praying mantis and it's hunting the praying mantis. So there's like layers of conspiracy, and one person thinks that they're like the hunter or they're on top, and then someone is behind them using them and they have no idea. Um really cool. I feel like when I first started reading this, I was a little bit overwhelmed, and I still kind of am, but it's starting to like click into place for me and make more sense, and it's also very fun, and I'm very excited to see what happens next. So I've got to go, but just quickly, on Wednesday when we come back, we'll be on page 165 for chapter 16, which is called Tempest. And I will actually remember to put up the stream, notification thing in advance this time. So thank you all for coming. Oh, thank you, Cookie. Henry, an oriole, it's a kind of bird. Like, I think it's a predatory bird. I don't think it's a hawk, but maybe it's kind of like a hawk or something like that. Yeah. Um, thank y'all. Yeah, I will see y'all on Wednesday. Have a good one.